A reminder that at this hour we are still watching that press briefing that we are expecting between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the European Commission representatives there. We saw them a little earlier on engaging on some of the points of discussion and reaffirming support for South Africa's presidency, of course, of the G20 and its priorities. And this is a summit that takes place at a time when there's some serious shifts as far as geopolitics are concerned. And at the same time, you then listen to those who are watching this particular summit saying that you need to also address some of the issues of trade imbalance. So we'll listen to that press briefing as soon as it gets underway. But we are now staying with this issue of the shootout that took place in the south of Johannesburg a little earlier on. Lopang Alamu, SABC News reporter, was watching that for us. Lopang, quite a lot to talk about as far as the story is concerned, but it seems that police say that they had intelligence on these people, which then kind of gives us a sense that they were tracking them over time.
Well, definitely. These are one of the most wanted suspects, or group of suspects rather, forming part of the syndicate that they were a part of in the province. So they were highly dangerous. They are always highly armed and heavily armed rather, and they get access to things like your explosives, things that you find in the mine or for the army.
Do they know where the other suspects are, the ones who fled?
Not yet. We do know that they found the time to flee when the shootout was still active. So instead of surrendering, they just thought, okay, I think it's time for us to run. But we did hear the police saying that they know who they are, they know where they frequent, and they will be hot on their heels.
And they are then, wanted for other crimes, and it seems there were others that were shot during that particular shootout. Do we know how many are currently in hospital?
Yes. So one suspect succumbed to his injuries on the scene. The earlier reports that a second had passed are not yet true. We do know that 2 are critically wounded in hospital at the moment. 2 were arrested on the scene, so they surrendered and they were apprehended. And then the 5 of those who fled.
And when it comes to the arrests, do we know when do they appear in court and the details around that?
So we're expecting them to appear sometime next week. We don't yet have a date regarding that. And these would just be the 2 suspects. And hopefully they could shed more light on the syndicate itself. So we do know that there have been 41 ATM bombings this year alone. So we do also know that the police say that they are linked to the other ATM bombings because that's their speciality, and that's they have a certain modus operandi, and they target specific businesses, and that's exactly why the police in collaboration with private security, the businesses themselves, saying they're really tired of being targeted. And if you'd notice, most of these ATMs are in open spaces. They're outside of certain shops, they're outside at the filling stations, and that is why it's so easy for them to just go there, plant these explosives and detonate. Unfortunately, they weren't able to detonate the explosives that they had already planted. So that's what they did. They'd already planted those explosives and were waiting for the others, or I think they got distracted by the interception of the police, from what we understand, because they were being followed for quite some time.
Quite interesting. And you speak about the 41 ATM bombings that we heard from the police there. What strategy? I know they're not going to reveal much. Are they putting in place to try and also deal with this?
Definitely. They've got a plan in place. This is according to them, obviously. But we also do know that they've asked the public for assistance. So they've pleaded with them to assist them with information. If you suspect that anyone in your neighborhood could be a part of a syndicate, please just let us know.
Lopang, thank you so much for that, and especially because if you listen to what the police had to say, it really does look like they've got quite a lot of work in their hands there. That is Lopang Alamu, my colleague, SABC News reporter, was tracking that shooting story a little earlier on. Let's take a short break. When we'll come back, remember we are watching that briefing for you, and we'll take you live to Cape Town as soon as it gets underway. You can see there, that's the presidential spokesperson, Vincent Makwenya. So it does signal that things are moving somewhat. We'll take you live to Cape Town in just a moment. Let's take a short break.